Good evening, everybody. I welcome you all to the case solving session organized by the 180 Degrees Consulting. As mentioned earlier, this is a very fruitful session for you guys. I'm sure that you will get to learn a lot of new things. We'll be discussing the basics of case solving and also talk about guesstimates from the scratch. And we've tried to make this presentation as beginner friendly as possible. Just before we begin, a quick note. First of all, congratulations to everybody who shortlisted for the case study round. I would also like to welcome everybody else who've taken out their time to join the session. One thing that I can surely say is that it's going to be a very fruitful session. You're going to get to learn a lot of new things about case solving in general. So, for the candidates who have shortlisted, you will be receiving a case document by the end of the day on your mails. The deadline to submit your responses for the case is 27th of November, end of the day. So by then you have to submit your responses. I think we are good to go and we can begin the session. Over to you, Pooja.
Hello everyone. My name is Purva Narang and I'm currently one of the senior consultants at 180 Degrees Consulting KMC. So before starting, I would like to ask you, what is consulting according to you? You can write your answers in the chat box.
Hi guys, just adding on to Purva, we'll try to keep the session as interactive as we can. So we request you to kindly keep up with the chat. Whatever question is being asked, if we ask you to type something, please share with us your thoughts.
Okay. So yeah. So most of you, what you're writing is correct. So basically, consulting is the process of helping clients solve their most pressuring business problems or issues. Consultants are enablers. We as consultants work across a wide range of roles, industries, and geographies to apply our methods of analyzing information and to identify a new positive way forward for our clients. The term consulting involves providing information to a client, solving a client's problem, making a diagnosis, which may necessitate redefinition of the problem, making recommendation based on the diagnosis, assisting with implementation of recommended solution, and building a consensus and commitment around corrective action.
Hello everyone, I am Vedansh Yadav, Senior Consultant at 180 Degrees Consulting, KMC. Here we talk about some good qualities of a good consultant. First of all, we begin with problem solving skills. In consulting, problem solving is really where the rubber meets the road. While problem solving, you review the data that you sliced, diced, and otherwise processed to develop a set of solutions, one or more of which will ultimately become the recommended course of action that you present to your clients. Quantitative aptitude. In consultancy, quantitative aptitude plays a major role. Consultancy involves numbers. Consultants at the top firms use numbers to provide not just the pie in the sky ideas, but to present the scenarios to the client company. These are more often on the safe side, and the consultants share not only the projections, but the reasoning behind them. To them, your ideas might sound like this: if you do X, Y, and Z, you will reach another 4 million potential customers. If based on your current market share of 8%, you reach 8% of these previously unreached 320,000 buyers, you will reach another 100 trillion billion dollars in the next 5 minutes. Now talking about the structured thinking. Structured thinking approach helps you to list down all the possible options without double counting. Structured thinking makes sure that nothing is left behind. In this, you must choose your words carefully while writing down to ensure that there is no ambiguity in understanding the problem. Good communication skills are especially important in the consulting industry because executives that consultants interact with expect effective communication skills. Everyone here has a limited attention span and tight schedules, so being able to communicate well is vital for efficiency's sake. Macro and micro lens. Macro level planning includes the outline of the project, while micro level planning includes the small minute details to make it work. Macro level lens focuses on long term goals, whereas micro level lens focuses on short term goals. Inference skills. The ability to make inference is in simple terms the ability to use two or more pieces of information from a text in order to arrive a third piece of information that is implicit. This is very important for consultants to make such decisions.
All right. Thank you so much, Vedansh. Let's move ahead. So this is a very important question, something that you all are here for. How to solve a case study. By now, you must have understood consultants are problem solvers. Hence, the first step towards solving a case study is to deeply understand what is it that you're trying to solve. What is the problem that the company is facing? Thereafter, define it further. How is it affecting the company? Your first step in this process is the most crucial one. To properly understand the case study, read it carefully again and again and again until you have a clear picture. Or if you're in an interview, you have to make sure that you listen to the case properly, nothing is missed. The second step in the process is disintegrating the problem into components. Before explaining this, I'll ask a simple question from you all. I would like each and every one of you to answer this in the chat box. It's a very simple question. All of you must have been to the college canteen at least once. Even if you haven't, don't worry. The question is, what are the factors that affect the sales of our college canteen? Price, quality, okay. Interesting, quality, hygiene, number of students, hygiene, atmosphere, number of children, footfall, right? That's great. I see a lot of good responses here. Availability, behavior, other options. Okay. Late service, yes. All right. I think you all are right in some way. So all these factors that you're just talking about are nothing but the components of solving a case study. And disintegrating it is nothing but breaking the problem into bits and pieces. You all did a great job here, dividing this given condition into the several components, such as the number of students, taste, quality, footfall, etc. Here comes the next part. Which of these factors do you think is the most important one? Is it number of students or is it quality of food? Price, quality, price, number of students, quality. All are important. All right. So yes, saying that all are important is not wrong, but after you have broken your problem down into several components, you actually need to figure out which amongst them is actually which of the components amongst them is the most important for you. It depends on the consumer, yes, and if so, the most important factor in this particular case will definitely be the number of students. It definitely be the price and the quality of food. Now, when you have the main components, see how they're related and how they form a connected outline. Earlier, what we had, right, Abhinav, price is also an important factor. I said that. Price and number of students are here the most important factors. So, getting back to the fourth step, that is formulating a structure. Now, when you have these main components and they're somewhere related, you have to form a connected outline. And earlier what we had was just an individual factors affecting a given problem. Now you have to connect them and form a systematically connected outline. In the question we were just discussing when you'll make a flow chart, you can start with sales, and under that box you'll have all these factors that you've just mentioned: number of students, on an average, how much does a student purchase, that is related to the price, and quality of food is definitely a qualitative factor, but you can consider that. And there are many more factors that you can have under that tree under the specific flowchart of sales. Moving ahead, synthesizing the findings. This might sound a bit confusing, but all the observations that you have made till now, you need to combine them in a meaningful way, right? You have to summarize the information, evaluate your observations, and after you have interpreted it, you have to basically again summarize and combine it. At last, always remember that apart from being problem solvers, consultants are also storytellers. Always remember whatever you have observed or interpreted till now is a valuable story for any organization, and you need to present and show it in that specific way, so such that it grabs the attention of the viewer or the listener, such that it conveys whatever thought process you've just had, and it should be clear enough for them to understand it and to look at it as a possible and an implementable, a feasible solution. Over to you, Pratyush.
Okay, so having talked about how to solve a case study, as Dhruv mentioned, we as consultants are required to have certain frameworks in the mind. We need to break the problem out. So, for breaking out these problems, we have certain templates and certain structures that have been designed that will help you in breaking out the components of a case. So, first of all, what are the different types of cases? As mentioned in the orientation as well, there are n number of cases that can be found, but majorly these are some of the different case types: profitability, market entry, market growth, pricing, mergers and acquisitions phase, capacity change, guesstimates, unconventional. Unconventional can include all the other, basically the which are not covered in this particular list. Can include social case. It can also include a PR case. PR means public relations case. So we'll be focusing on two major case types today in this session, which is the profitability and market entry, considering the fact that these are the most common ones that are asked in your case competitions and also in the placement interviews. The structures that we'll be discussing in details are mostly oriented from the point of view of the placement interviews. But if you have a hang of them, it will be very helpful for you in solving the case studies also, because you will get to know what points that you have to research, and you can get those data points, and then you can build your story upon that. So we'll be quickly covering up a profitability and market entry frameworks. Dhruv will be taking you with the profitability framework. Over to you, Dhruv.
Right. Thank you, Pratyush. So, as the name suggests, a profitability framework helps you assess the profit of a company. Do you remember the second step we just had, disaggregating the components? Let's do that here as well. We'll try to break profit into two parts. And before proceeding further, I'd like to again like someone from the meeting to answer a very simple question: what is profit? You can drop down in the chat box. You can unmute and answer that. Just simply, what do you mean by profit? Reward of the business, great. Right, Deepika.
Bhaiya, return for taking risk.
Right, that can be said, yes.
Revenues minus cost.
Right. So rewards for taking risk is one way of saying that, and that I won't deny that. But when we talk in accounting terms or economics terms, profit is simply revenue minus cost. The total money that the company is earning minus the total amount of money that is used by the company for its various needs. Now, again, getting back to our example of canteen, to calculate the profit of a canteen, we'll follow the same structure: the revenue minus the cost that they are incurring. Now, do you think we can break revenue or break cost into further components? Do you have any answer for that? How do you define revenue? How can you break down revenue and costs? Okay, cost, fixed and variable, right? What
Direct
about
and
revenue?
indirect.
Direct and direct can be one of the things, yes. Recurring, non-recurring, okay. something, some more like a mathematical expression for revenue.
Price and quantity.
Right. That's right. So when you talk about revenue, it can be further divided into price per unit into the number of units sold. Similarly, moving on to cost, we can divide cost into fixed and variable cost. For those who are from commerce background, they must already know what a fixed cost and a variable cost is. I'll just go through for those who are not from a commerce background. A fixed cost is something that does not change over a period of time. It stays constant. I'll keep it simple. Variable cost that changes over a period of time from quantity to quantity. So it changes over a period of time. So for example, fixed cost can be plant, machinery, fixed labor. There are overheads and more. When we talk about variable cost, there are wages, there is cost for raw materials, and again, there are more examples to that. But using this whole framework, we can calculate how much profit is a company making. But now you must be thinking this is just a framework, right? It does not solve a problem. It does not answer it. Actually, it does, and it will depend on the given question or the given problem. So if you're given how can the profit be increased, or if the company is generating less profits, is you can infer that it might be because of less revenue, or it might be because of very high cost. And there can be so many more such permutations and combinations of such questions, and thereafter such answers as well. Over to you, Pratyush. We'll be moving on to the market entry framework now.
Okay, fine. Having talked about the profitability case framework, we'll be coming to the market entry case framework. And I want the attention on the screen right now, because this is a bit of a complicated case study framework to discuss about. And your earlier inference about the profits will also be utilized here. So before we begin, in general, if I pose you a simple question, what does the term market entry sound to you? Like, what do you mean by market entry? Quick responses in the chat box, or even if somebody can unmute and let me know, what does a market
How can a firm enter into the market, start the business?
Okay, fine. Good answer. So market entry, if I talk about in basic terms, market entry generally means that a firm is looking to enter into a new market. It can be an existing firm who is diversifying its business, or it can be a completely new entity who wishes to enter into a new market. So when we look at the market entry, we'll be discussing and divided into three major parts. The first is the financial attractiveness. Second is the operational feasibility, and third are the risks involved. So financial attractiveness, we'll be talking about financial attractiveness first. The financial attractiveness is the most important point that the firm looks out, because it's the most driving force for any company to enter into a particular market. If we divide financial attractiveness into three parts, that is profits, growth rate, and competitors. We're talking about the profits first. So you've already done what is profits, total revenues minus total costs. So when a company has to enter into a market, it has to look about what profit it will earn. To calculate the profit, it will have to look at what quantity it can sell. What quantity it can sell will be determined what is the market size of the particular market. So market size is basically the quantity that that particular market has in total, the quantity that is sold in particular market. So if I talk about, for example, the market of bats, cricket bats. So if in India 1 lakh bats are sold per year, so that is the market size of quantity in terms of quantity. Now, when we divide on an average, if we look at the cricket bat is sold, for example, at 1,000 rupees. So if the quantity is 1 lakh and the price is 1,000, so the market size for that particular bat industry in India will be 1 crore. So like this is the math that we use here. So like this is the market size, how we calculate. So bat, the number of quantity that is sold multiplied by what is the average price. So we calculate the market size. So this will be the market size. When a company has to enter it, look at how big is the market size. Okay. The next part that a company will look at is the market share. What is a market share? Market share is what percentage of this particular market is controlled by different players in the market. So for example, if I talk about the market of cricket bats in India, so what are the major players? Number one, SS, SG. There are other N players, Kukobura. So these are the particular players that are existing in a particular market. So if we divide it, we will find that some percentage will be controlled by a particular player in that particular market. So based upon that, we calculate the market share. So if a company has to enter into a particular market, it looks at what market share it can attain in future. That will depend upon the competitors as well, and we will come to that fact later. Because if there are a huge number of competitors in the market, then it will be difficult for a company to acquire a large major market share in that particular market. But a company can also disrupt the market like the boat did. But not every company is boat. So like market share is a very important thing that a company looks at. The third important factor is the profit per unit. How much profit will you generate in particular? So if the cricket bat is made of the selling price of cricket bat is 1500, what is the profit per unit? Like the profit will be the cost price minus the selling price minus the cost price. So if it is, let's say, sold at 1500 and the cost price of making it is like 1000, so the profit per unit will be 500 approximately. So like this is how we calculate the profit per unit. And to calculate the profits overall expected, we minus it with the fixed cost, because variable costs are something that the company will have to think about once it has entered into the market. But before entering into the market, company looks at what investment it needs to make. So this is the revenue that it expects, the first three components, and the fourth component, which is the fixed cost. It is the cost for the company, and the cost has to come up with it is like an investment for the company because it is entering into that market. It is not yet entered that market. So we calculate the expected profits. So expected profits is multiplying the market size into market share into profit per unit and minus the fixed cost. So we will get the expected profits of the particular company in general. Coming to the second point, which is the growth rate. So growth rate is another important factor that a company looks after. So if I give an example, let's say if a company is expecting a good profit for the next 2 years, but on the other hand, there are some insights that after 5 years, the growth rate in that particular market will decline. So that company will keep that particular thing very much in mind, and it will try to not enter into that market, or it will try and figure out some innovations in that particular market to increase the growth rate. Because may there be a large number of profits for the first 2 years, but if the market is not going to grow, and if it is already at its saturation point, and if there is a projection that the market will not grow further, it will not be profitable for that company in long run. Because when a company enters into a particular market, it enters from a long-term point of view. It will not enter from short-term, like we will come today and tomorrow business will be closed, because it's difficult for a company to enter into a particular market. So it will look at the expected growth rate that will come from its investment that it has made. The next is the number of competitors. So the competitor's strength, competitor's advantage is one of the major factors that is important to analyze the market entry. You might have come across a term, competitors analysis. If you have not come, competitor analysis generally involves finding out what your competitors are doing, what steps they have taken in particular about different products. It also involves how well they are placing their price, what is their price versus yours. It's generally a comparison between you and your competitors. So if there are a large number of competitors, as I already told, it will be very difficult for a company to come in and make its own position there. So that is kept in mind. Also, if there are a large number of competitors, the pricing power will lie in the hands of consumers, because a slight decrease or increase in the price, I think for the economic student, if you have heard about the term elasticity, so the elasticity will be very, very marginal for that particular market, because if there is a slight increase in the price, then there will be a sharp decline in the quantity sales. So this is because the market has a lot of substitutes that are present there. So if not you, the company, the person can move into any of your other competitors to buy that product. So we usually find that in a tight market where there are a lot of competitors, our entry is not feasible. It's generally not feasible. If you have something very innovative that can break out the market, that's different. But in general, we find that the market where there are a lot of competitors, it's not advisable to enter that market until and unless you are sure that your product is well in technology and it is going to boom the market. The second important point is the operational feasibility. The operational feasibility here means that how you're going to operate your business. So for operations, what you need? I think you need licenses. From the first thing that you require is the government licenses. So if I talk about the medical industry, you require a lot of licenses and certifications. If it is difficult to enter a particular market, so there will be less number of firms. So if I talk about insurance, earlier, if I talk about like past 5 years back, there were hardly any companies that were there in the insurance sector, and still the majority of the stake is held by LIC, because it is very difficult to enter into that market, because it is very, very controlled by the government. It is very, very regulated by the government. You cannot enter that particular market till you have fulfilled certain criteria. If you find that the NBFCs, the non-banking financial institutions, such as they also require a large number of regulations from the side of government. So if it is difficult for from the side of government, if government has made it very difficult, so then it is not feasible for a company to enter into that market, because it will require a huge regulations and from the side of government, and therefore the company will not be operating on its own freedom. So that is also kept in mind. Based upon financial attractiveness and operational feasibility, we find out the risk. So if, for example, let's say HUL is trying to enter into the, for example, we can take an example that it is trying to enter protein market, protein shakes market. So like HUL is entering. So if it feels that it has good financial attractiveness in terms of profit, but the growth rate of the market is also good, and the competitors are very high, so what it will do? So that is a risk. If there are high competitors, that is a risk for that company. It is expecting good profits, it is expecting good growth rate, but the problem is there are large number of competitors. So once that is a risk for that company. So when we are presenting or giving out a strategy to our client, we keep in mind that what are the risks involved, whatever we suggest. So for example, if I am consulting to Hindustan Unilever, if I suggest that your profits are going to go high, your growth rate is going to go high, you should enter the market. But what you will also suggest is what are the risks involved, because there cannot be any of the strategy which is without risk. So this covers the market entry framework for you. And I hope it is clear. We'll be coming to the questions at the end, so you can take the time to digest this. I know it is a bit of a complicated framework for understanding, but I have tried to explain it in as simple way as possible. We'll be moving to the next slide.
Guys, just like before we move to the next slide, you can definitely take a screenshot of the previous slide, and it will be for your future reference. So you can take a screenshot, and even while asking doubts, you can refer to this.
All right. Thank you, Pratyush. Let's discuss another type of very popular framework. This is something which you'll be using inside another frameworks as well. And this is a type of framework in itself as well. So guesstimates, you might have already figured out. Guess plus estimates. Guesstimates are basically approximations based on the available limited information. However, you should always remember that a guesstimate is an informed base guess. It's not an accurate answer. Sometimes the exact number or percentage of a given information can't be estimated. Therefore, as consultants, we analyze and evaluate the information. Thereafter, guess the closest feasible quantity. Before moving ahead, you must have heard about these two methods or these two approaches, the top-down approach and bottom-up approach, not just used in consulting, but in various other fields as well. What do you infer by these two terms? If anyone could let me know in the chat box or by unmuting. Top-down or bottom-up approach? It need not be related to consulting, but in general, what do you infer by these? If you can answer that. Change from top. Okay, can be said one thing. Anyone
Bottoms up
else?
says.
Down approach.
Right, please go ahead.
Top down approach could be like focusing on the top percent of the people and going downward. And bottom down approach means starting from the, let's say, poors in India are major chunks in number, so we would focus on them, then go to the top rich percent.
All right. Okay. Aditya, you're saying something.
Right. Usually, top-down approach in the government when action is taken is when people with power start the work and it reaches and trickles down to the lesser parts of the society. And bottoms up is a collective effort that reaches towards the top. I mean, it's a guess.
It's very close, right? Something similar in consulting. Anyone else? Top down means people at top. Decision is taken at higher level to lower level. All right. I think you guys are very close. So, okay, I'll take this now. Top-down approach, starting with an entire population. As you guys already mentioned, from the top to the bottom. So you start with the entire big chunk of population. In other words, the top level. The top-down approach focuses more on part where it breaks down a certain problem into much more smaller parts. On the contrary, the bottom-up approach first focuses on solving the smaller problems and then integrating them to a whole and complete solution. The bottom-up approach is usually used by mostly practiced for many future tasks such as goal setting, budgeting, and forecasting. We'll take an example and see this. So if you get the question of finding out the number of shaving foam users in Delhi, you've heard about the company named Gillette, right? If you have a question of finding out Gillette shaving foam users in Delhi, and you have to use a top-down approach, what will you first consider? I repeat the question. You have to find out the number of Gillette shaving foam users in Delhi. Number of men in Delhi, right? Someone else? You can unmute and answer. You're free to unmute, guys. Come on. I'm sorry, did someone say something? Number of young and old men, units sold, all right.
Total sales.
Total sales. I think that's the question, right? Indirectly, finding out the number of.
May I speak?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, so first we'll first we'll analyze the number of men in Delhi. And I guess we should then segment the men into males who actually need to shave. So basically post-puberty men. And
Right,
then
precise.
move on to the next step.
All right. So actually starting from directly with men, that can be one thing. But as I mentioned, you have to start with the population. So first you need to start with the population of Delhi, and then you need to find out the number of males that exist in Delhi. Then after the first division we did is on the first division that we just did is on the gender parameter. So we had the population, but we had to divide it using the gender parameter. So that was the first division that we undertook. However, obviously it does not end there. Now you'll break males into age groups, what you and someone else just mentioned, post-puberty men. So right, when you consider males who are below 18 years of age, a good proportion of them do not shave. But above 18 years of age, yes. Then also you have to consider amongst those who actually shave, there is a good proportion of people who prefer using a trimmer and not shaving foam. Right, but not all of them would be using a shaving foam, right? I'm sorry, did someone? All right. Some of them might be using a trimmer, some of them might be using a shaving foam. So you need to break it down further and so on and so on. And this is how a top to a top down approach works. Bottom-up approach, on the other hand, the best example I could think of, something that each of us, each and every one of us must have done at least once, calculating how much our tuition teacher earns, right? Starting from how much one student pays per month, multiplying it by the batch size, multiplying it by the number of batches he takes. And that's how you started from the bottom. And you estimate, okay, my tuition teacher earns 1 lakh, 2 lakh. He's even richer than probably I'm going to be. Yeah, never mind. So again, all you have to do is solve all those, right, Shivam, every 8th grader ever. We'll come to the question later on. So just wait for that. Again, all you have to do is solve all those pieces and consolidate them and present the answer. To go for a general structure of solving guesstimates, you'll have to, as we discussed, again, understand the problem, define it, and understand its objective, something that I mentioned in our previous slides. To dive deeper, if you're sitting in an interview, ask relevant questions, which can help you get a clear and wider look at the problem. If you're solving in a case study competition, if you have been given a case study, ask yourself those questions. What else can be, what else relevant information that I need? Look it up on the internet, look it up through other resources, and you just need to have a wider and clearer view of the problem given to you or the question given to you. Reiterate, that is, again, for example, if you're sitting in an interview, confirm with the interviewer, okay, that this is the information I've just got, this is the question that I asked, these are the questions that I asked, and out of these, this is what I infer I have to work upon. So you have to reiterate, you have to confirm, so that miscommunication or misunderstanding or misconception is avoided. So now when you're comfortable with these first 3 steps, then you can select the top-down or bottom-down approach. Now, since you'll be guessing a lot of things, you also need to assume some things. When we were discussing this small example of tuition teacher, you can assume that a teacher takes classes 5 days a week, right? This is an assumption that you'll have to make and communicate. You can't expect the interviewer, you can't expect the judge in a case study competition to expect, to understand or to believe that you have already assumed that he's teaching for 5 days and not 6 days. There are teachers who teach for 6 days as well, right? How do you know? How does the interviewer know what you're working upon? You have to be clear of that, whatever assumptions you're making. First be clear with your assumptions that, okay, this is something that I should make before proceeding further. And if you have made an assumption, communicate with the interviewer, communicate with the judge in a case study competition, or communicate it through your presentation that this is something which we are assuming. And after that, this is the calculation that follows. This is the procedure that follows. Structure on paper, getting back to the structure that we just discussed, that you have to formulate a structure, right? When you have the case, you decided which approach to take on, which approach to follow. Then again, get back to the basics, break it down into components, be it bottom up or top down, break it down into smaller components and formulate a structure on paper or wherever you can. And after that, it's the thing that, last but not the least, we need to provide an error estimate. Now, since again, back to the tuition teacher example, you guesstimated that their income must be 1 lakh. But again, back to basics, guesstimate is an approximation based on information. It's not an exact number. So if you're saying that, so you'll have to communicate in such a way that my guess is he makes 1 lakh to 1.5 lakhs, 1 lakh to 1.5 lakhs, or 1 lakh to 1 lakh 5,000 rupees a month. And your error estimate can be, okay, I might be 10% wrong. This might be +5. His income might be +5,000 or -5,000. I'm not exactly aware of how many students he has in other batches. I'm not exactly aware of how many batches he actually teaches. So if I'm saying that he earns 1 lakh rupees a month, it might be +10, +10,000 or -10,000 wrong. That is what we mean by error estimating. This concludes our guesstimates. So you have both the approaches, the top-down and the bottom-up approach. You have a general structure of how to select the approach, and thereafter move ahead with what are the assumptions, and thereafter, in the end, concluding it with your error estimates. Now, this might be confusing. There are three frameworks that we just taught, very interlinking, very interrelated. So we'll move ahead with a practical example. We'll do a mock. I'll be the interviewee, and Purva will be the interviewer. So let's move ahead with that.
Yeah. So my question to you is that your client is the owner of one of the Miniso stores in Delhi, and the store has been facing declining product sales. You need to analyze why this is happening and also recommend solutions accordingly. So I hope my question is clear to you, Dhruv.
Yes, sure, ma'am. Can we move to the next slide, please? Slide. So cool. All right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the case. Before beginning it, I'd like to understand it better. So, are we talking about just the departmental store which sells a variety of product, or is it just a single category of product, or is it variety of products from stationery to cosmetics that Miniso stores generally sell?
No, we are talking about the departmental store, which sells a variety of products from
Noted.
cosmetics and all.
Noted. So, may I know the duration of how long have we been facing this problem, and how large has it grown into?
Okay, so we have been facing this problem around March 2020, so roughly around some months back, and there has been
Okay.
a 60% decline in revenues.
Okay, 60% is a considerably huge decline. Ma'am, do we have any information on whether other Miniso stores and other competitors in our locality have faced a similar decline, a similar fall?
Yes, our competitors as well as other Miniso stores have faced this decline,
All right.
around 30% in revenues.
Hmm. 30%, that's again okay. Um, to move ahead with, what I can infer is this seems like there's a decline in not just the Miniso stores, but also the industry. Pratish, can we move on to the next slide? All right. So this seems like to be an issue in the whole industry and not just with the Miniso store. It's the market that's declining. And I assume that since you're talking about March 2020, 2020 still, this must be the general decline that we have. It might be because of the lockdown imposed in Delhi in March. So since we had a lockdown, there must have been very less or no customers approaching Miniso.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Ma'am, I would like to understand if there is this specific particular product line that has been affected, or is it across all categories of product that Miniso sells?
No, the decline is quite uniform in all the lines and products.
All right. So what I can infer from this is this can be affected by either the supply side constraint or the demand side constraint. In our case, the supply side constraints to have an edge, given our competitors are also affected, given the market is declining. So I think I'll look more into the supply side.
Yeah, if we also believe that it is a supply side constraint.
All right. So, ma'am, for given a store like Miniso, supply side, I think would majorly consist of procurement and distribution. Do we have any specific information again, uh, with respect to with which one of these is actually affected more? Is it procurement or distribution?
Yes, so from our side, we also believe that it's an issue with our distribution push.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we can understand distribution push by mapping the customer journey, and I'll divide it into three phases. For first phase being the before entry stage, that is before the customer enters. The second is after entry, and that is when he's in the store, he's during his shopping, and the last stage is in terms of billing. So we need to analyze if people are finding difficult to enter the store, and I believe a few reasons could be, for example, if you're talking about before entry, before the customers have entered the store. Some of the reasons could be there might be construction work going on outside the store. The entry gate might be blocked because of an obstruction, or there can be accessibility issues in terms of there are not elevators or broken steps if it's inside a mall or somewhere. Also, long security checks often affect consumer behavior. So we can also consider that. And parking facilities is something that also affects a customer. If they don't find good parking facilities nearby, they'd rather stop somewhere else. And listing on Google Map, again, since it's a digital era, Google Map listing is pretty important. If our Miniso store is not listed on Google Map, it definitely affects a considerable amount of our sales. The second phase, which is after entry, given that the customer has entered the store, I think we need to analyze what exactly is it that's stopping them from buying the product. Is it that same categories of product are not placed at one place, or is it that what product they're looking for they expect it to be in Miniso, but that is unavailable due to any XYZ reasons? Is the staff not friendly enough to greet the customer or to talk with the customer? That can be one of the issues. And again, there are sometimes customers do not carry their own shopping bags, but even if they wanted to buy something and they can't carry it somewhere, they can't always carry it in their hand. They need shopping bags or carts or any kind of baggage like that. If that's also unavailable, that's also a major issue. Then last, the billing stage, given that if the customer has already bought the product, he's onto the billing phase, he's almost paying. Are there enough number of counters, given that, again, customers are there in the store, customers want to buy, customers have picked something, but there are not enough number of counters that available for billing, then it might make the customer less willing to buy a product from there. Payments method offered, again, digital era is there. Just like we need to be on Google Maps, we also need to have online payment facility. Also, availability of carry bag need to be made. This is something that not just affect the shopping phase, not just affect the after entry phase, but also the billing phase, because again, if they can't carry it, they won't buy it. So these are the inferences divided into three phases, and these are the inferences that I could offer.
Yes, so you have identified the reason correctly. My one last question to you, Dhruv, is that due to this pandemic, more people prefer using online modes of payment, and this particular branch of Miniso has not implemented that yet. So, what would you suggest to this?
All right. So as I mentioned, online payment is something that we really need. So since it takes time to get registered and have an online payment for a store, I think in the short term, to immediately tackle the problem, the store manager can accept the payments on a personal number so that we do not lose on customers. So that in case they want to pay through digital mode, through UPI or any other mode, they can do that. And in the meanwhile, we can, in the backend, we can work on process of getting our Google Pay and other things set it up. The store can also implement home delivery so that so they can deal better with the lockdown imposed and make use of, again, social media marketing through WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Google Ads as well. So I think that's what I have for now.
Okay, thank you, Dhruv, and we'll be closing the case now.
All right, thank you
Over
so
to
much, ma'am.
Prithvi.
So guys, just one thing worth mentioning here would be that you need not get intimidated by words like, supply side or demand side, and various technical terms which Dhruv used, like distribution, etc. So it might seem very scary in the beginning, but at the end, when you actually analyze the solution, so it comes down to really practical stuff. These are the things you can easily think of, like online payments or accessibility of the store or visibility on Google Maps. So these are like all of the solution is actually really practical, and you need not get worried by all the theoretical parts and be scared by it. And even when you get now, even when you will be getting a case presentation right now and a case study to solve, then there will be a lot of like technical terms which might be new to you, and we've tried to explain them to you as much as possible in the case question that we've given itself. But even after that, you just need to think of the most practical solution you can and not be scared by the theoretical parts of it.
Right. And adding on to what Ramya just said, if you'll have a careful look at what we just did right now, again ignoring the theoretical part, is that we again just broke the problem down into pieces. What the interviewee did just here was breaking the Miniso shopping experience into three separate parts. Before the consumer entered, before the customer entered. Second was while he was shopping, and third was if he has already done, he's complete with his shopping, he's at the billing phase. These are the things. So you can go with a very practical approach. That's what we all do while shopping in a store. You enter it, you have to make sure that you enter it by looking at it, if it's attractive enough, if there are no barriers to entry and other things. And when you're in the store, you look at it, are things managed correctly? Is the staff friendly? Is there hygiene? Or do they have the product that I need? And again, at the billing phase, if many a times I've seen people only having cash, and the store manager is only accepting online payments, and vice versa as well. So these are just what practical scenarios you might have experienced, or you can actually observe in your day-to-day life. You just have to answer them using through the presentation. Over to you, Pratyush. Thank you. Over to you, Vedansh. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhruv and Purva. Now we have seen such interesting mocks. Now I will be talking about some do's and don'ts. Now let's begin with some do's. First of all, you should have a body language, which means you should appear confident. That means you should have a good body language. Dialogue, but not monologue. Monologue is typically a traditional speech said by one person during a conversation, which means an absence of interaction. At work, this is when someone talks to you. In contrast, a dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. So you should make the conversation more interactive. You should ask for time, use of paper well. You should make use of all the information provided to you. You should use real life events. Now, talking about some don'ts, you should not assume things on your own. Don't have a rigid framework. Instead of that, have a flexible framework. You should not panic and be calm and composed while interacting. You should avoid unnecessary details, and you should not take a one size fit all approach. That was some do's and don'ts that you have to take care of.
Right. Also, adding on to just one point in the don'ts part, rigid frameworks. The frameworks we just discussed, the Pratyush just mentioned in that slide, there are some pre-existing frameworks. All of you must have used a framework while you were answering the 180 DC shortlisting form as well. These are not, your frameworks should not be rigid. By rigid, what we mean that these pre-existing frameworks might not always have the component that you have just found out for the problem. They might not always have the factor that you might have in your mind for solving the problem. So you can modify the frameworks accordingly, or you can simplify the frameworks accordingly for your preference or for the solution needed. Right. But that's all. Moving on to the next slide.
Adding one more thing before I take this presentation forward. Here's the word assume that is there in the don't. So we already told you that in the guesstimate that you should assume. So here it is written in don't assume. So what is the difference? That a slight difference is there. You should not assume which is not relevant to that particular case. You should ask the interviewer that you are assuming this, and there's a reasoning behind this. You should not blatantly assume anything. So that has to be sensible assumptions that you need to take. So that is why we are given assume in don'ts as well, because you need to balance it out properly. We'll be moving ahead. We'll be coming to the case study templates now, since the next round is a case study round. So basically, when you will move at the case study competitions, you will find two rounds that are there. One is the submission round and another is a presentation round. So there's a difference that is there, and in terms of presentation that you need to make also. So for the case submission round, you need to keep the presentation a bit text heavy, because there you need to show the person who is judging that you have done some certain research. And also, when you're presenting that particular presentation in front of a panel, in probably the next round is a presentation round, so there you need to cut down on the text, because there the examiner or the person who is sitting in the panel is looking how well you have analyzed this particular case, and they're not looking at very text heavy presentations. One thing that I will tell you, by now, if you have not you must have having a habit of making very texty presentations, but in the corporate world or even in the consultancy, when you are coming into solving case studies, don't make a very text heavy presentations. Your presentations should give out the data very easily. It should contain everything, but it should also not look very text heavy. Use graphics, use infomercials, use wherever you can use a pie chart or a graph, use any pictorials to depict what you are trying to say. That's the point. So here's a template that we have. It is a HUL case study from PepsiCo. Every year PepsiCo has a case challenge, and this we have taken from the famous business school FMS, which is next to KMC. So this is a case template from there. We've tried to, this is just as a for the reference, like how you should go ahead. It is very in detail, because that is at a B school level. But what we want you to focus at is how they've made this presentation, like what things they have covered. If you look at the contents, just begin with the problem statement, then they have given what approach they have taken. Then they have talked about what are the insights. So insights basically cover penetration rate. Penetration rate is how many people are expected to enter into that particular market. It covers what is the growth rate. It also covers the in general current statistics of that particular company that you're talking about. Then they have the next certain slides are according to the solution that they have presented, and then in 9 slides that they have completed their entire solution. So whatever majorly you will find that the presentation always have a limit on the cap of the number of slides that you can use. So there are generally 5 or 6 slides for the content that you will get in on an average that I'm talking about. It can vary in general, but in general you will get around 5 to 6 slides, and then that you have to give out your solution. So try to look at a problem from a very if the problem is very specific, then you please focus on the specific parts of the aid. Don't beat around the bush, because then your content will become 50-50, because you have to present what is being asked in that 6 slide, and try to be as innovative as possible. Usually when you judge these presentations, what a person looks at is your solutions. And in solutions, you don't have to be restrictive of your ideas. So don't think that this idea will not work. Even if you think that this is a creative idea, apply it and put it in your presentation. So all your insights is okay, but what a company is looking at is your solution. ठीक है भाई, आपने you made a whole story out of it कि भाई इतना growth है, इतना हमारा revenue है, but what at the end a company is looking at is what are your solutions. So be creative, be as much creative as you can be. If we move to the next slide, you will see that how they've divided this particular problem statement. Yeah, sorry.
Hello.
Okay.
You wait.
Sorry. Okay. So problem statement, if we talk about how they've divided the problem statement here, we will look at that they have. So the case at that has been I'm showing to you was that their HUL has a large brands. So the sales were concentrated in one segment, and what we had to look was that if there is potential in other segment that can be unlocked. So if you can see on your screen that the presenters have divided this particular problem statement into 4 parts, that they have divided the brands of HUL into 4 parts. First is the affluent brands. These are usually bought by the upper middle class or the rich class, that is Tropicana, or if we talk about Quaker Oats. Then they have kept some brands in the aspirers category, where they've actually placed them because they here the company has a good share. Pepsi has a good share, Mountain Dew has a good share, Kurkure, Lay's, these all have a good share, but the market share can be increased. So these are certain areas that the company should look at to if they want to grow. So they have come up with these names. This is not a this is not something that you will find on internet. They have given this, they have made this on their own. They have classified the brands on their own. So this is a very high level, but I'm just giving that how they visually planned to showcase this also. If you come to the next slide, you will see that they have given a general idea that they want to take from first picture to the second picture, that is increasing the penetration for the HUL. The next is if you see that they have given the objectives very well, that is the increasing the penetration rate. And this is the slide. This is a very complicated slide. This is not for you guys. You can look at it. You will not, if you even if you don't understand what is given here, don't worry. This is a bit complicated slide, but what I want to focus here is how well they have presented the data. So they have shown a pictorial. It is easy to analyze. This is a pie chart. This is also a pie chart. So pie charts are easy to grab. They have kept the information that is relevant there. So other option that could be at their disposal would be to use a text that, okay, there are no new variants in the strugglers category. So this is a text. This is a sentence. Instead, they have shown a graphic. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to be very, very visual in what you're presenting. Don't become very text heavy. Make come out with a little text. A little text is required, obviously, to support what is being said, but try to be as less text as possible. Try to keep as much as less text as you can. So this is what the basic idea is, to show you these case templates. If we move to the next slide, they keep some if you're given a good number of slides that you can, if the limit of slides is like 8 or 9, try to have pictures as well. It gives a good idea. As I already said, like be as much pictographic as you can, because because if you have to judge n number of case PPTs, a person looks at something which is eye catchy. So you have to make it appealing to look. If it is not aligned, if the text, it is too text heavy, no one will bother to read that text. So you have to be very specific in what you are mentioning. Also specific, do not mention a large number of solutions. Try to give 3-4 solutions and build upon them. It's good to present even a one solution if you have given that how you will implement that solution. So that is what the basic idea is. Coming to the next part, here also they have tried to showcase different things. I will not get into depth. It's already very intimidating, and I feel it's very heavy for you today. So we will cover these things, all the details or the advanced version of these things in later parts. We'll organize such sessions later as well. So for today, we'll be wrapping up with this session over here where we have shown the case templates. Just a point, just before we open the platform to questions, the reminder for all the participants who have qualified the case study for the case study round, that you will be getting a case template by end of the day, and you have to come up with the solutions by 27. It would be a case presentation, and it would not be a case presentation, it would be a case submission. So you have to submit it on a Google form, and the rest of the details you will find in your mail.